Everyone, today we are going to discuss about the tragedy. What we are going to study about? The tragedy. The tragedy. Okay. The history of drama shows that tragedy originated in religious festival of the Greek god Dionysus. Which god? Greek god. Greek god. Greek god Dionysus in 6th century BC. In 6th century BC. Etymological, the word tragedy is derived from the Greek word tragedy. Which word? The Greek word tragedy. Tragedy. That means God song. What does tragedy means? God song. God song. It came to be used for plays probably because of the practice of sacrificing a goat during the festival of Dionysus. The other reason may be that the winner of the dramatic contest was given a goat as a reward. The goat was given as a reward to the contestant. The contestants were required to represent a tetralogy of play. What they have it? They required to play tetralogy. Tetralogy means tetra means 4, which consists 3 tragedies and 1 satire play. 3 tragedy and 1 satire. Okay. In ancient Greek literature, the concept of tragedy is different from the modern concept. The modern tragedy is usually considered too as a play with unhappy ending. In modern, there is an unhappy ending in the tragedy. However, many of the Greek tragedy end on a happy note. Tragedy is defined as the imitation of an action. The imitation of an action, serious, complete, and of a certain magnitude. In a language beautified in different parts with different kinds of embellishment through action and not narration, the true sense of pity and fear bringing about the catharsis of these or such like emotions. Plato considers imitation to be an act of mimicry. Now Plato says that, according to Plato, imitation, what is imitation? Imitation is an act of mimicry. But Aristotle has given a new meaning to this term. For him, imitation does not mean servile copying but an imaginative recreation. Aristotle says that imitation is the basic principle of all fine arts. Tragedy is distinguished from other fine art according to the object, medium, and manners of imitation. On the basis of object of imitation, tragedy is distinguished from comedy. Tragedy emits serious action, whereas comedy emits non-serious. So far as the medium of imitation is considered, tragedy is distinguished from lyric. A tragedy uses several kinds of embellishments. Tragedy is differentiated from epic on the basis of its manner of imitation, as tragedy represents through action whereas epic narrates. Aristotle has Aristotle Aristotle has used the term magnitude for the length of the action of tragedy. In this respect, usually the tragedy is compared with the human body, as too short or too tall human body does not look beautiful. Similarly, too short or too long tragedy is not good, as a tragedy is performed on the stage within 2 or 3 hours. The dramatic action should not be long, as the audience will forget about the beginning before the. It should not also be too short, as it would not allow the writer to develop the essential aspect of the plot and character. Any dramatic action must have beginning, middle and end. A good beginning is the one which is not dependent on any of the previous situation and from which further action follows out. A good middle arises out of the event in which have gone before the leads action toward its logical and convincing conclusion. A good end is the natural outcome of whatever has gone before without leading any action. The function of tragedy is, like other work of literature, is to delight or to please. Function of tragedy is to delight or to please. While speaking about the function of tragedy, Aristotle has used the term catharsis. Catharsis. But Aristotle has not defined catharsis, and so there are endless debate on the exact meaning of the term. Some scholars consider that catharsis means purgation. According to the theory of purgation, the spectators in the theatre are relieved or cleansed or purged of the harmful emotion of pity and fear. According to the other group of scholars, catharsis is the resolution of dramatic tension within the plot. It means in his play the dramatist represents the incident which aroused the emotions of pity and fear for the fate of the protagonist. During the course of the action, the dramatist resolves the conflict which help him to take the action to its logical conclusion, along with creation the emotions of pity and fear. Now we will discuss about the types of tragedy. Types of tragedy. First is heroic tragedy, second is revenge tragedy, and third is Shakespearean tragedy. What is Shakespearean? Shakespearean tragedy, and fourth is sentimental tragedy, and fifth is melodrama. Now we are going to discuss firstly the heroic tragedy. Heroic tragedy. Heroic tragedy. The heroic tragedy is also known as the restoration tragedy. Restoration tragedy. The influence of French romance and drama produced its first important result in the form of heroic tragedy. The heroic tragedy is artificial. Its emotions are unreal. It mainly deals with the conflict between love and honor. John Dryden was the principal writer of the heroic tragedy. His famous tragedies are Titanic Love, Conquest of Granada, and All for Love. In Dryden's heroic plays, we find a hero of superhuman powers with superhuman ideals. There is a heroine of unsurpassed beauty and constancy. There is an inner conflict in the minds of several characters between love and honor, and there is a striving story of fighting and martial enthusiasm filled with intense dramatic interest. Or for Love is the finest tragedy of this period. Another playwright was Thomas Otway. He wrote Alcibiades, Don Carlos, The Orphan, and Venice Preserved. Now we will discuss about the revenge tragedy. Revenge. Revenge tragedy. The revenge tragedy genre of English literature generally refers to a body of dramatic works written from the mid 1580s of early 1640s, from the Elizabethan to the Caroline period. Typically, these works feature such themes and devices as a wronged revenge seeker, ghost, madness, delay, sinister intrigue, a play within a play, torture, multiple murders, and the realistic depiction of bloody violence on stage. Nearly all the major playwrights of the time contributed to this class of drama, including Thomas Kidd, William Shakespeare, John Marston, George Chapman, Cyril Turner, Thomas Middleton, John Webster, James Shirley, and John Ford. Most literary scholars have credited Kidd with initiating the dramatic archetype with the Spanish tragedy, and the so-called Your Hamlet, a drama no longer extant but which is believed to have been written before 1589 and upon which Shakespeare likely based his great tragedy, and have created Shakespeare with the bringing the genre to its artistic maturity with Hamlet. Critics have maintained the revenge tragedy was a markedly dynamic genre, observing that while Kidd invented the basic formula, his successors added ingenious new layers of dramatic suspense, characterization, symbolism, and ideological representation to the theatre form. Now, Shakespearean tragedy. Shakespearean tragedy. Shakespeare wrote tragedy from the beginning of his career. One of the earliest plays was the Roman tragedy Titus Andronicus, which he followed a few years later with Romeo and Juliet. However, his most admired tragedy were written in 7th-year period between 1601 and 1608. These include his four major tragedies: Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, and Macbeth. Along with Antony and Cleopatra, Coriolanus, Cymbeline, Julius Caesar, and Caesar, non-Timon of Athens, and Troilus Cressida. Shakespeare's tragedy is fundamental series involving the downfall of a heroic figure. The themes are lofty: passion, revenge, ambition, and jealousy. Downfall of heroic figure. The themes are lofty, like passion in Romeo and Juliet, revenge in Hamlet, ambition in Macbeth, and jealousy in Othello. Unique element of tragedy are the tragic hero, who is articulate social authority, someone who is important within his society. His hero has at least one weaker or fault, a tragic flaw, which during the course of the drama grows until it overcomes his virtues and leads to his downfall and the destruction of his world. And the chorus, borrowed from Greek tragedy, in which dancers singers appear at intervals within the play to comment on the acts and express objective judgment of the proceedings. Now we will discuss about the sentimental tragedy. Sentimental tragedy. If you want to understand this in Hindi, then comment. I will. If lots of student, number of student say that sir, please make us understand these all things in Hindi, then I will try my best to understand you these in a Hindi medium also. So we are going to study about sentimental tragedy. While sentiment in its modern sense may be found in all forms of drama and theatre, sentimental drama was specifically 18th century European form in which, as Oliver Goldsmith put it, the virtues of private life are exhibited rather than the vices exposed. Sentiment at this period meant feeling or sensibility. While many of the plays were nominally comic, the characters tended to be dull and priggish, the plots pathetic, and the language stilted. Despite this, it was popular with the rising middle class audience, especially in the Germany, France, and Britain, because it tended to treat them seriously in ways which neither comedy nor tragedy did. For all its dramatic ineption, it is important in theatre historical terms, as it marks an important stage in the development of serious prose drama. In the English language, the most famous and most successful tragedies are those by William Shakespeare and his Elizabethan contemporaries. A contemporary of Shakespeare, Christopher Marlowe, also wrote examples of tragedy in English, notably the tragical history of Dr. Faustus and Tamburlaine. John Webster also wrote famous plays of the genre, The Duchess of the Malfi and The White Devil. Now, the fifth type, that is melodrama. That is melodrama. Though the term melodrama is sometimes applied to the dramatic production of certain period, it also often designates a certain kind of literary structure. Melodrama is the fantasy of a world that operates according to our heart's desires, in contrast to the other formula types that are fantasies of particular action or state of being that counter some of our deepest fear or concentrate on particular wishes for victory or love or knowledge. Therefore, melodrama can contain all the other fantasies and often does. In fact, its chief characters is the combination of number of action and setting in order to build up the sense of whole world bearing out of the audience traditional pattern of right and wrong, good and evil. One thing possessed in common by these otherwise very different sort of stories is the quality that has traditionally been understood as the hallmark of melodrama, the drama of intensified effects. That is music. Melo means music, melos. Added to the play to increase its emotional power and intensify its holds on the audience. Therefore, the idea of melodrama has come to be associated with the violence and sensationalism. The plot revolves around the malevolent intrigue and violent action, while credibility both of character and plot is sacrificed for violent effect and emotional opportunism. This is undoubtedly one major characteristic of melodrama, but the quest for intensified dramatic effect is characteristic of the entire range of formulaic type. Particular formulas come into existence and flourish at least in part because they invent heightened narrative or dramatic patterns. In this sense, all formulaic stories are melodramatic, and we might at the various We might add the various formulaic types, adventures, romance, and mystery, as simple specialized form of melodrama. Indeed, many of modern specialized formulas such as classical detective story and spy story and hard-boiled detective story and the gothic romance did evolve historically from the broader melodramatic form of the early 19th century. The specific formulas that depends on the basic moral fantasy of melodrama are many and various. Some of the more important contemporary examples are the best-selling panoramic social novels such as those written by Irving Valence, Harold Robbins, and Jacqueline Susann. The historical spectacle such as Gone with the Wind, the soap opera, the gangster saga, the professional drama such as Dr. Liar or Teacher Story, and many others, though extremely various in the culture material they employ. All these formulas are shaped by the basic qualities of melodrama, the heightening of feeling and moral conflict and multiple lines of action that work together to create a sense of rightness of the world order. Some important examples of melodramas are John Fletcher's The Maid's Tragedy, John Webster The White Devil, John Ford's The Broken Heart, Thomas Heywood's A Woman Killed with Kindness, Francis Beaumont's A King and No King. So with this we begin to wind up today's lecture. Thank you for listening and look forward to see you in next class. And don't forget to like, share and subscribe to this channel. Thank you.